Welcome to Econ 317. In this instruction video, we will go over an exercise of aggregating demand and supply. So, here we will start with the demand given for each one of individuals, and we assume there are many different individuals having different demands who are being served in a given market. So let's have consumer 1 or buyer 1 with demand being given by P equal to 30 minus Q1. I will use lowercase q to denote quantity demanded by an individual buyer. So given this demand, I can draw Q1 on the horizontal, price on the vertical, and so this is the inverse demand, price on the left hand side and quantity on the right hand side. We can see the graph for this inverse demand will have vertical intercept 30. Since the slope is -1, the horizontal intercept is also 30, and so this is the demand for buyer 1. Now I go to buyer 2. Buyer 2, and the demand is given by P equal to 20 minus Q2. Okay, with this now I can find out the demand, the graph for the demand, again price on the vertical, quantity on the horizontal, and this time the intercept would be 20 and 20. I will also add at this stage one more buyer. So let's have buyer 3, demand given by price equal to 10 minus Q3. We draw the inverse demand for this buyer as well. And so the vertical intercept is 10, the horizontal intercept is 10. We must ignore this part of the inverse demand. It must be only in the first quadrant. Okay, now we want to find out the market demand when there are only two buyers, buyer 1 and buyer 2. So I will write down market demand with two buyers, buyer 1 and buyer 2. So remember, the market demand for buyer 1 was 30 minus Q1. This is the inverse demand. I will write it as the quantity demand function, and we can see in this situation Q1 on the left will be written as Q1 equal to 30 minus P. So in a way I had taken a simple inverse demand so that the transformation was easier. But what I need is the quantity demanded by buyer 1. Similarly, for buyer 2 it was 20 minus Q2 gives me Q2 equal to 20 minus P. And now let's try to draw the market demand. We must note that buyer 1 is able to buy the output at prices which are any price below $30. Okay, so I start. So I will have Q1 plus Q2, and that is what I want to write as Q. Okay, I have price on the vertical. When I start at price close to 30, we know only buyer 1 is buying any product at this price, in this range of the price from $30 till we reach $20. We have only buyer 1, and because buyer 2 will start buying the product only when price goes below $20. So close to $30, buyer 1 buys nothing. But as price reaches $20, buyer 1 is able to buy 10 units of output. Let me write it here. At price equal to 30, I know Q1 is 30 minus 30, 0. Price equal to, I will take an intermediate price. At price equal to 25, Q1 equal to 30 minus 25. We see it is price is 5. Remember, Q1 is 0 for price equal to 30. Also, Q2 is 0 because buyer 2 doesn't buy anything as long as price is in excess of $20. So again, at price equal to 25, I see Q2 is 0. In other words, the market demand at any one of these two prices constitutes only the quantity demanded by the buyer 1. So I can write Q is sum of Q1 plus Q2 turns out to be 0 when price is 30. Q sum of Q1 plus Q2 turns out to be 5 plus 0 when price is 25. Maybe I will now go to price equal to $20, which gives me Q1 equal to 30 minus 20, 10 units. Q2 20 minus 20, 0. So the market demand, the sum of quantity demanded by each one of these two buyers is 10 plus 0, 10. In that sense, when I said price is between $20 and $30, only the buyer 1 is being served. And at price equal to 20, buyer 1 ends up buying 10 units. So that's what I want to show here. We have 10. Now I go to prices which are below $20, and now you can see when price goes below $20, both buyers are operating in the market. Both buyers are able to buy goods. For prices below $20 per unit, both buyers are able to buy the goods. I take an example. P equal to 15, then Q1 equal to 30 minus 15, 15 units. Q2 equal to 20 minus 15, 20 minus P2 is the quantity demanded, equal to 5. And so the aggregate quantity is sum of Q1 plus Q2, 15 plus 5 turns out to be 20. So this is the aggregation of the demand of each individual buyer to obtain the market demand. And this is the point where you will be able to see that why drawing the inverse demand is a useful way of aggregating the demand. Because what we are doing now is we pick any price on the vertical axis and try to find out the quantity demanded by each one of the buyers at that price, and we add it up, which is taking the horizontal intercept of each one of the demand curve at any given price on each one of the inverse demand curve at any given price and adding up. Let me take another price, P equal to 10. Q1 is 30 minus 10, turns out to be 20. Q2 is 20 minus 10, turns out to be 10. And so the aggregate demand, sum of the two, 20 plus 10, turns out to be 30. When price goes close to 0, I will write 0, but we must understand it is not exactly 0, close to 0. Q1 will tend to 30 minus 0, close to 30. Q2 will tend to 20 minus 0, close to 20. And the market demand, 30 plus 20, turns out to be 50. And so this is the part I will like to draw in the graph here. So as we reach prices close to 0, the quantity changes from 10, goes up from 10 to 50. And so you can see there, so first let me write down, this is the market demand with buyer 1 and so you can see there is a change in slope at the price equal to 30. The slope to the left of quantity equal to 10 is steeper and slope to the right is milder. And we have the aggregate quantity on the horizontal axis instead of the quantity demanded by each one of the buyers. So this is the market demand. I could add one more buyer as we have listed before. And remember, our buyer 1 price was given as 30 minus Q1. Buyer 2 price is given as 20 minus Q2. Buyer 3 price is given as 10 minus Q3. I could write down the demand functions. Q1 is 30 minus P. Q2 is 20 minus P. Q3 is 10 minus P. So now you can see buyer 1 buys positive quantities when price is below 30. Buyer 2 buys positive quantities when price is below 20. And buyer 3 when price goes below $10. So for price between 30 and 20, only buyer 1 is present in the market. For price between 20 and 10, only buyer 1 and buyer 2 are there in the market. So I will write buyer 2 joins in. For price below $10, all the buyers are present in the market. For price below $10 per unit, all buyers are present. And so what I will do is I will find out the quantities at the points where each buyer continued to join in. So let's say for P equal to 30, I know buyer 1 is also not present in the sense that buyer 1 will buy 0. 30 minus 30 is 0. Buyer 2 is not there. Buyer 3 is not there. So the market demand sum of these three, 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 0. Price equal to 20. Buyer 1, 30 minus 20 buys 10 units. Buyer 2, 20 minus 20, 0. And buyer 3 is not there. So the quantity bought by all three taken together is 10 plus 0 plus 0, 10 units. Now let's go down to price equal to 10. Buyer 1 buys 30 minus 10, 20 units. Buyer 2 buys 20 minus 10, 10 units. But buyer 3 not there. So the aggregate quantity 20 plus 10, 30 plus 0 is 30. Now let's go to buyer price being close to 0, not exactly 0. Then quantity for buyer 1, 30 minus 0 tends to 30. Quantity for buyer 2, 20 minus 0 tends to 20. And buyer 3, 10 minus 0 tends to 10. So the market demand is 30 plus 20, 50 plus 10, 60. And so this is what we will draw as the aggregate demand. So right now I will like to again show the value of drawing the inverse demand function compared to demand function when we are aggregating the market, the individual demands to obtain the market demand. So what I am going to do is I will draw all the demands using the same vertical axis P. So let's start with the buyer 1, 30 and 30. Obviously I am not able to draw it to this scale. So this is Q1. Then I will draw buyer 2 will not buy anything above price of 20 and buys exactly 20 units as price goes down to 0. So 20. And then I will now draw the buyer 3. So this is Q2 and buyer 3 does not buy anything till price reaches to $10. So this is 20, this is 10 and will buy only 10 units as price goes to close to 0. So this is buyer 3. And now I am going to add up to obtain the market demand which we have seen for prices from 30 to 20. It is only buyer 1 who buys 10 units. So starts from 0, goes up to 10 units when price goes down to $20, 10 units. Then we go to price equal to 10. Now the buyer 1 and buyer 2 are present. So buyer 2 has joined in. When price goes to $10, buyer 1 buys 20. Buyer 2 buys 10. So we have 30 units. So there is a change in slope here. Buyer 1 plus buyer 2. And then as we go from price equal to 10 to price close to 0, again there is a change here and we reach quantity equal to 60 as price goes down to 0. So this is the aggregate demand Q, which is equal to the sum of Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3. As you can see, market demand in this part is Q equal to Q1. In the second part, market demand is Q1 plus Q2. In the third part, the price between 10 and 0, Q1 is Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3. So this is the way we are able to aggregate individual demands to obtain a market demand. You can also see as I can add more and more buyers in this market, there will be change in slope at each one of the points of kink, and this can lead us to a smooth downward sloping demand curve when we have large number of buyers out there, which is typical in any market in the US. Now, there is another way to do this aggregation exercise in terms of we assume the following: there are 10 buyers of type 1. When I say type 1, who have the inverse demand function 30 minus P, the demand we had assumed in the previous case. Let's say we have 20 buyers of type 2 who have demand Q2 equal to 20 minus P. I'm just making up these numbers because we can say there could be several buyers having similar characteristics. So we can club them together and do the market aggregation exercise. I will assume there are 30 buyers of type 3. So Q3 turns out to be 10 minus P, which means for each type of buyer, the quantity demanded by all of them taken together would be the quantity demanded by 1 multiplied by the number of that type of buyers. So now I will use the uppercase Q to denote the quantity demanded by the entire group of type 1 buyers or type 2 buyers and so on. So Q1 is the quantity demanded by all the buyers of type 1, which will be, we have 10 buyers of type 1 times the quantity each one of them buys, 10 times Q1. I know it is 30 minus P for each individual buyer of type 1. So what I have obtained is 300 minus 10P. That's the quantity demanded by all the buyers of type 1. And we will use the uppercase Q to denote this aggregation. Now I can follow the same principle to obtain Q2. We have 20 buyers of type 2. So 20 times 20 minus P, I obtain 400 minus 20P. Third type of buyer, we have 30 of them, and then Q3, lowercase q3 is the quantity demanded by each one, which is 10 minus P. So what I obtain is 300 minus 30P. Now I can do the algebra, I can do the graph. First I would like to do the graph just to show how we are able to do the aggregation exercise. Then maybe I will also show the algebra, at least for some cases. So I have price on the vertical, quantity on the horizontal, but this time Q, the uppercase Q would be the market demand. And so let me start with price equal to 30. From 30, price goes down to 20. We know only buyers of type 1 are going to buy. And when price is 20, 300 minus 10 times 20 is Q1 would be 300 minus 200, so 100. So that's what we obtain when we have buyers of type 1 only participating in the market. When we go down from price equal to 20 to price equal to 10, now we know buyers of type 1 will buy 200 units, 300 minus 10 times 10 is 200. Buyers of type 2 will buy 200 units again, 400 minus 20 times 10. So 20 times 10 is 200, gives me 200. So at price equal to $10, we have 400 as the quantity bought by each one of them. And now as I go from price equal to 10 to price close to 0, buyers of type 1 will buy 300. Buyers of type 2 will buy 400, that's 700. And buyers of type 3 will buy 300 again, so I obtain 1000. This will be the market demand. I will write on the price range 30 to 20, market demand is Q equal to Q1. Price range 20 to 10, market demand is Q1 plus Q2. In the price between 0 to 10, all the three groups of buyers are participating. So Q is Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3. I also would like to write down the algebra. So remember, for price between 30 and 20, quantity Q1 is 300 minus 10p, Q2 is 0, Q3 is 0. They do not buy when price is above $20. So the market demand Q is Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 is 300 minus 10p plus 0 plus 0, 300 minus 10p. For price between 10, 20 and 10, now Q1 as before 300 minus 10p, but Q2 also will join in 400 minus 20p. Q3 continues to remain 0. So now I will add up. Q is sum of these 300 minus 10p plus 400 minus 20p plus 0 gives us 700 minus 30p. Okay, now we have the lowest price range, price below 10. All the buyers, all types of buyers are there. So Q1 300 minus 10p, Q2 400 minus 20p, Q3 300 minus 30p, and so what we obtain is the sum Q equal to Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3, 300 minus 10p plus 400 minus 20p plus 300 minus 30p, and now I can add them up. Constants add up to 1000. Q equal to 300 plus 400, 700 plus 300 is 1000 minus 10p, 20p, 30p, and 30p, 60p. And that's the inverse demand function we have drawn in the graph. Okay, this is the market demand. We can also do something similar for market supply. And again, you can see the value of drawing the inverse supply function compared to the supply in aggregating the market's individual firm supply to obtain the market supply. So let's say that there is a firm having the inverse market supply given by P equal to Q1. And so I can draw this inverse supply. I have Q1 here, I have price here, and so this is a straight line with positive slope of 1 and vertical intercept 0. So I can draw a straight line passing through the origin. I can write it as P equal to Q1. This is the supply for an individual firm. Now, it makes economic sense to assume that all firms in this market have similar inverse supply functions, because if not, then those firms who have higher cost of production would be driven out of the market. So in the long run, we will have firms out there in the market having almost similar supply functions and cost conditions. So I will assume there are 10 firms. I'm just making this number 10. You can come up with any other having identical supply. When I say supply, I will write down the inverse supply function. Each one of them has P equal to Q I equal to 1, 2, up to 10. In this sense, we are now, when we want to compute the aggregate supply, I am going to add up the quantities supplied by each firm at any given price. So for example, take P equal to $1 per unit. Then you can see Q1 is equal to the price, so 1 unit. Q2 is 1 unit, on and on. Q10 is 1 unit. In this sense, if I add up, I will now write low uppercase Q, which is the sum of quantities supplied by each one of them. 1 plus 1 plus 1, 10 times, turns out to be 10 units. Which could also be written as, if you see, 10 times P, because price was $1. So what I have obtained is the market supply given as Q equal to 10P. But remember, we draw the inverse supply. So I will write down inverse market supply. So first I will rewrite it as 10p equal to q, but I need p by itself, so I will divide both sides by 10, and so what I have obtained is p equal to q by 10. And let's draw this in a graph to see how the aggregation of adding up works in this situation. So I now will have Q, the market supply price on the vertical. If you remember, slope 1 was the individual supply. So I will write P equal to, let's say, Q1. But when I draw the market supply, the slope becomes smaller, it becomes 110, and this is P equal to Q over 10. So what has happened, for example, if I take price equal to 1, I found out quantity supplied by one firm to be equal to 1, but then I added up for each one of the firms in the market. There are 10 of them, so 1 unit supplied by 1 means in aggregate all of them taken together will supply 10. So the market supply curve will become flatter as we add more and more firms. And this is a good point to stop.